we have any amendments to the agenda? No amendments. We do have one presentation. We have a certificate of recognition for Eagle Scout Tyler Farnsworth. Tyler, come forward. First up, congratulations. Always great to welcome another Eagle Scout into the ranks. Look at this certificate for you. It is a certificate of recognition. The Mayor and City Council of the United City of Yorkville present this certificate to Tyler S. Farnsworth in recognition of his achievement in the rank of Eagle Scout, the Boy Scouts of America Youth Program of Character Development and Values-Based Leadership. Presented the 20th day of March 2012. Congratulations.
Basically, I just wanted to raise awareness because this day and age, our generation is kind of forgetting about what POWMIA really is. And it's a three-flag pole memorial, the main flag being the American flag, and then the POW flag and the Trinity flag, since it's on Trinity grounds. And then there's a seating bench, kind of reflection area that's paved and decorated with like boxwood shrubs.
Very nice, and I also understand that you have enlisted in the Marines already.
Yes, sir.
August this year, Tyler's going off to ordnance technician in the Marines. Very nice. Also for a picture? Or Ken, you want to come in for a picture? Under this one. Yeah, congratulations. Everybody there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have no public hearing tonight. How about citizen comments? Do we have any citizen comments tonight? Yes, sir. State your name for the record.
Yeah, I kind of turned it away, sorry.
What I am going to hand out, as I typically do, I think there's enough for everybody plus Mark. First, I guess I'd like to say that I was a little disappointed in a response I had asked 2 weeks ago for answers to questions. I didn't get the response personally, but I did find it in the packet, and I saw it was dated March 16th. So I guess I had to wait quite a while to find the answers to the questions that I had asked about the budget. Then, to go along with that, one of the questions that I had asked, probably the most critical one, had to do with bonds, or as I like to put it, is our debt or our loans. No answer to that. I asked George Gilson to check into that for me, and he did. And I got a response. So I put together the spreadsheet that you see in front of you, trying to understand what bonds were outstanding, what bonds were due, and the dates they were due. That was okay. Took a little bit of work putting them together. But then a couple days ago, I got a revision. And I don't understand the revision. I'm not going to get into those details, but I can assure you that there's some of those bonds are missing from the second email, and there was a new bond added in there, and one that's kind of missing in action. But I'll reference that a little bit here, but I guess I was hoping that we were going to be more transparent and with this council, and I was hoping we'd get better answers than what I got on these bonds. It shouldn't be that difficult by the number of bonds you have to be able to tell the citizens exactly what we owe, what we have in payments, and what's due from the taxpayer to pay for that. So with that said, some of what I'm going to say relates to that sheet, but basically the sheet, and I do have it in Microsoft Excel format on a USB if anybody wants it, to play the numbers game. But with that said, good evening. My name is Mark A. Johnson, 204 Georgiana, Yorkville. I'm here to make some comments about the City of Yorkville's budget. I'll lead off by saying that I appreciate this council's desire to make things more transparent. I have been consistent in my approach my entire 62 years in my city. I have heaped praise when I thought it proper. I have criticized when it needed to be said. I have always tried to put things into perspective and in a way most people can understand. I will attempt to do that again tonight. If someone sees a mistake in a number, or if I'm off by a year, I'm not trying to deceive anybody. I am trying to get my conservative approach across, and I am trying to help. I have lived my life conservatively and respect those who have done the same. It served me well. For those who do not know history, I can tell you that throughout history, first in the 1920s, again in the 40s, and in the 60s and 70s, there were those who were for free drugs, do anything you want if it doesn't affect someone else, and live for today, because with the wars in the world, there may be no tomorrow. Sometimes it doesn't seem like we have learned much in the last 100 years. Many people haven't reviewed history and learned from it. There will always be those who think the glass is half full, and those who don't. Doing a budget is a daunting task, even in our own lives, but it must be done and it must be followed if a family is to survive. I will try to put my comments into words that will make the budget be more relevant to everyone. My words tonight will definitely resonate with George Gilson and Rose Spears. They get beaten up for the stance they take, but I say thank God somebody actually balances the other side of the argument. The glass is sometimes half full, and sometimes it's half empty. With our economy today, it is most definitely half empty. Most of this council is so new, I haven't determined if you are all half full or half empty yet. There should always be arguments over the important things in our lives. So keep the arguments coming. Some people in our city don't appreciate the heated discussions, but believe me, it will make us all stronger in the long run. Let's look at the city's budget as I look at my own. If we simply remove a few zeros from the numbers, I can relate much better. Let's set the stage. Our city's revenue is $23 million annually. Let's remove 3 zeros and more, make that 23,000. My Caterpillar pension is pretty close to that. My house is 40 plus years old and must be maintained. The city's infrastructure is 100 years old and must be maintained. My driveway has begun to need repairs. Our streets are in need of repairs. I'm pretty much on a fixed income unless I get a part-time job to supplement it, which I really don't look forward to. The city is currently on a fixed income unless it raises taxes, which my budget doesn't look forward to either. Here's my praise and critique on the city's budget from that viewpoint. I took the budget and tried to break it down to one main area. That area is the city's bonds, or as I see it, the outstanding loans from the banks and taxpayers. There are many other areas I could comment on, but most everyone can relate to bills coming due without money to pay them. I think a few of these loans are actually from Vinnie out in New York. In 2012, the amount we have to pay Vinnie on our loans is north of $9 million. 2013, $11 million. 2014, $10 million. 2015, $11 million. And so on. It isn't until 2026 the city goes below $3 billion in debt payments. $8 million is 35% of our income in debt. $12 million is 56% debt-to-income ratio. For the last 4 or 5 years, households with those ratios have been filing bankruptcy around here. If that happens, businesses don't get paid. Taxpayers don't get paid. Even Vinnie doesn't get paid, and we all know what happens when Vinnie doesn't get his money. Take a close look at yourselves. What do you consider is safe to borrow against your income? Most banks consider 30% as the highest they want to go. Our city doesn't go below 30% until after 2022, 10 years from now. And that is if we have to borrow $0 over the next 10 years. Do you honestly believe that is responsible? The rest of the taxpayers have to make up for those who are irresponsible or those who just failed to plan properly. Our city is at that tipping point right now. The mayor tries desperately to settle the nerves of the masses by making a point that this budget is headed in the right direction, and that in 4 to 5 years we'll be healthier than we are right now. I actually praise him for having the intestinal fortitude to try to settle the masses. His calming statement may be true to a point, but what if another major problem hits our city? I'm trying not to be Chicken Little, but what could the next problem be? What if a young person drowns at our new kayak shoot? A lawsuit, perhaps? What if a developer that we're giving the farm away to thinks they're getting a raw deal from the others? Another lawsuit? What happens when our overcapacity sewer plant needs to expand for growth that all of you are expecting with these new building plans? What happens when we have to start paying raises and benefits to those city employees who we've ignored for 3 to 4 years? What happens if Yorkville gets hit like Joplin or Harrisburg with an unplanned storm? We have no money to tide us over. We will once again be forced into borrowing from the county or the banks or even Vinnie's godfather. I'm not here to tell you that you haven't worked hard to get us back from the brink of insolvency. And I'm not here to tell you that it's your fault. I know that most of this was done before you were here. I'm here to ask you to get a tougher skin and turn a deaf ear to those who keep asking for more wants instead of needs. It's human nature to want more. Some of us see the reality. Some will never be happy until they get their own way. They bankrupt us or they move somewhere else because we are a backward, hillbilly city. To those, I say good riddance. To you, I say good luck. Cut deeper and begin putting some cash aside for the next disaster that will certainly happen. Being a realtor, I look at many people's incomes over the years versus their desires for a mansion. It isn't real pretty when you discuss the true cost of home ownership versus reality of the buyer's income. The city has that same problem. We have a 100-year-old house in a wonderful area that has all kinds of possibilities, but we just don't see any increased income in the near future. The spouse and all our friends see the possibilities of refurbishing the old mansion, and all I see is a money pit. The flagstone foundation has a large crack in it, not unlike the River Road Bridge. The roof has leaks, but we have strategically placed pans and buckets all around the house to catch the water. We just sit and pray for a dry season. We can't see the damage being done in the attic, but we know it's there. Not unlike the 100-year-old sewers and water pipes under our city today. The furnace and air conditioner are old, and the expert told us we should have replaced them years ago. Not unlike the Beecher Center, the Rec Center, and other city properties. We keep painting the old clapboard siding every couple of years, but we know the wood is slowly rotting. And we should look at siding if we ever get the extra money. The old windows required me to put the storm windows up every fall and put the screens up every spring. A lot of you probably don't remember that, but most of us do. The old storms and screens are deteriorating every time we change them, but we just don't have the cash to put in all new windows this year. I have seen this happen at least 4 times this winter in my 40-year-old subdivision when my streets have been flooded from a water main break and the city crews have had to do emergency repairs. It's probably all over the city the same way. I haven't even begun to look at the old electrical wiring in the house. I just tell everyone in the household to unplug the toaster before running the microwave. Or with the water pipes and water heater, don't run a load of wash or flush a toilet when somebody's taking a shower. This is the reality of the budget you are going to vote on. Not only for the next year, but for the next 5 to 10 years. We can keep fooling ourselves that the glass is half full, or we can do something about it. Government has the basic needs of its people to consider first and foremost. As in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we must provide the basics first. Fix the foundation, or most certainly the house will collapse, and we won't have to worry about the rest of our problems. Next, fix the roof, then the furnace, and then the air conditioner, the electrical and wiring. That is what most governments have lost focus on. We have been through a time period where we wanted everything. In a way, we were all on drugs and booze, and were using the credit card without concerns about tomorrow. It appears that the money would always be there and life was going to be great forever. Then reality hit. Those of us who understood history and have learned from it the hard way tried to explain what needed to be done in the past. We are here tonight with the same historical lessons.